Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here. My name is Sarah Neuter. I'm a professor of classics and chair of the poetry and the human sequence. And it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Layli Longsoldier this evening. I first want to thank her for making the trip to our frigid tundra to be with us today. I also want to thank the program in Poetry and Poetics, the Division of Humanities, and the college for making this event possible, as well as John Wilkinson and Starsha Gill for bringing the whole visit together. Layli Longsoldier is a citizen of the Oglala Lakota Nation and a celebrated poet, as well as being an activist, artist, journal editor, and English professor. This afternoon, my colleague John gave a beautiful introduction to Longsoldier's work, particularly her gorgeous and powerful book, Whereas. So I will be more brief and specific, focusing largely on what her poetry has meant to the students and teachers of the courses in Poetry and the Human, since so many of you are here today. Poetry and the Human, or PATH as we call it, is a sequence of courses that was launched 3 years ago as a collaborative labor of love. As we say in our syllabus-style jargon, in PATH, we aim to ask what poetry is and why we do it. We promise to examine the practice of poetry as a form of communication, linguistic innovation, and embodied presence. What's more, we bank on the proposition that thinking through poetry is an excellent lens for truly seeing the world in all its beauty and brokenness, in seeking to understand it, interrogate it, respond to it, and most crucially, to demand more from it. The poetry of Layli Longsoldier has been a flagship for the sequence since its inception. Her poetry is so perfectly fitted to our high ideals that these goals seem to describe her work. For in no other poetry do we find such a commitment to critical, heart-rending, mind-shaping engagement with the history, texts, and the multiple shifting realities of this world we have inherited and affect. Hence her poem 38 underlines various pointed acts, like an annual journey on horseback, and a stuffing of the mouth with grass as forms of memorial, forms of poetry. She teaches us that actions are poems inscribed in the world, and poems can be actions as well, can be laden with merit, with worth, and with obligations to one another. Her poetry also offers us a new way to absorb the beauties of shared worlds, particularly the love shared by parents and children and passed down through generations within communities by way of care and tradition and through the many kinds of poetic making that emerge from the space and activities of bodies. Finally, there is a lot of I, and by that I mean the first person I, in the poetry of Longsoldier. But it is an I, as we heard this afternoon, that is intrinsically imbricated within a we, an offering of shared life and personhood that invites us to engage with a world lit up more brightly, more warmly, and more vibrantly. For these reasons, it is a great delight to have Layli Longsoldier here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Layli Longsoldier.
Layli Kichita Hanska, Layli Longsoldier, Machiapi da Yahipina Chante Washte, Nabe Chiyusapi. I'm very happy to be here, and I come with a good heart and a warm hand. I guess that's what I said in our language. I'm going to start off. I have all kinds of new stuff that I'm working on, but I'm a very slow writer, so I'm not ready to really share much of that new stuff. But I'm going to share this one poem titled King and a few other things. I will also read from Whereas tonight. And before I start, I just want to say I'm so honored and happy to be here. So thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome by all of the faculty and the students here tonight. I wrote this piece titled King. King. I'm so wound with built-up keystroke, dog bite and growl. Wind slides through New Mexican, brilliant, white-gray clouds. Spring Early morning, 5-minute drive to school. I drop my daughter down curbside, a line of mothers, fathers, steering wheels to go cups, coffee filled. Backpacks, pink and blue sneakers, high ponytails, dark eyes flash goodbye and love and have a good day. I'm gaining weight upon the lost body, barely able to lift my feet. I can't answer the simplest why. I have much to be thankful for. I seek to be forgotten, still compounded. But that the year would end on a high note, relationships resolved. Every friendship, even the broken, is a friendship again, mostly. What more to ask for as the dog sleeps and sheds his winter coat? Just earlier tonight, I stood in front of the window and burst out, crying I didn't care if passers-by watched. Because just this week, I gave a speech about many things. Among the many, I spoke about feeling. It's our work, I said, and I teetered at the edge of the stage, nearly falling into scraped face futility. Dogs. I've had some dogs. King was a black lab who left for days to fight and lord the block. So busted up as he aged, he'd lie at the edge of the porch, roll over from exhaustion, tumbling into the bed of cacti. My mother and I pulled needles from his hanging dogskin, one by one. It took hours, no doubt, though I do not remember, except he was black and a king and old. Along the way, somehow, he died, didn't he? I've fallen into depression, I'm sorry. I thought I was fine, then I dropped into what pulls. For so long, my anchor's been pain, a lodestone, magnetized and electric. I came to understand this what as feeling. But who cares now? It's between the page and me, personal, private. I am two and then twice that as I call my name 4 times. Layli, 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 Layli. At the door, Layli pain and Layli joy. A child self enters with me. Layli think and Layli do. They soft step to the threshold, I imagine. I want no resolution to this friendship of self, halved into halves. Pain, you boss and lord this existence, slow as white blooms, along the sky, crumpling into themselves, then loosely breaking. Away, away, I call my name. I wait for my return. Strange, strange, stepping toward me, I see no one. Yay! That was my depression poem. I highly recommend it. Seriously, just get honest. I'm depressed. I'm gonna write about it. It actually helps. As soon as I wrote that, I felt better, if you can imagine. I'm going to read a few pieces from my book, Whereas. As I said, I'm kind of interested in new work these days, but I do know some of the students here are reading this book, so I thought I would share a few pieces from that. I'm going to share some images actually from an installation titled Whereas We Respond. This was an installation I had while I was writing this book on where my family is from, Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And this was at the Heritage Center, and we invited community members. We projected some excerpts from the National Apology onto 3 different walls in this space at the Heritage Center, and invited the community to come and respond to that text. So, and then I have a few other pictures of my daughter and some people. Now, make room in the mouth for grasses, grasses, grasses. Whereas, when offered an apology, I watch each movement, the shoulders, high or folding, tilt of the head, both eyes down or straight through me. I listen for cracks in knuckles or in the word choice. What is it that I want? To feel. I'm always writing about feeling. To feel. And mind you, I feel from the senses. I read each muscle. I ask the strength of the gesture to move like a poem. Expectations, a terse armfold, a failing noun thing. I scold myself in the mirror or holding. Because I learn from young poets. One sends me new work, spotted with salt crystals. She metaphors as her tears. I feel her phrases, quote, I say, and quote, understand me, and quote, I wonder. Pages are cavernous places, white at entrance, black in absorption, echo. If I'm transformed by language, I am often crouched in footnote or blazing in title. Where in the body do I begin? I'm going to read the piece that I actually consider the heart of this book, and it is the piece I wrote about the most effective apology I've had in my life. I meditated a lot on what makes an apology feel real, what makes it work. A good apology can put behind years and years and years of hard feelings, hard times. You can put it behind in a matter of seconds. At least that's my experience. And so the most effective apology I've had came from my dad. And this is my dad. Up there, he's a painter. His name is Daniel Long Soldier, and that's my little brother Gabriel holding my niece. Whereas I heard a noise I thought was a sneeze. At the breakfast table, pushing eggs around my plate. I wondered if he liked my cooking, thought about what to talk about. He pinched his fingers to the bridge of his nose, squeezed his eyes. He wiped. I often say he was a terrible drinker when I was a child. I'm not afraid to say it because he's different now. Sober, attentive, showered, eating. But in my childhood, when things were different, I rolled onto my side, my hands together as if to pray, locked between my knees. When things were different, I lay there for long hours, my face to the wall, blank. My eyes left me. My soldiers, my 2 scouts to the unseen. And because language is the immaterial, I never could speak about the missing. So perhaps I cried for the invisible, what I could not see doubly. What is it to wish for the absence of nothing? There at the breakfast table as an adult, wondering what to talk about, if he liked my cooking, pushing the invisible to the plate's edge, I looked up to see he hadn't sneezed. He was crying. I'd never heard him cry, didn't recognize the symptoms. I turned to him when I heard him say, "I'm sorry, I wasn't there. Sorry for many things." Like that. Curative voicing. An opened bundle. Or medicine. Or birthday wishing. My hand to his shoulder. "It's okay," I said. "It's over now." I meant it. Because of our faces blankly. Because of a lifelong stare down. Because of centuries in sorry. So I was kind of worried about what he thought about my cooking. This is a long time ago. This is probably like over 20 years ago. I'm getting old now. But a long time ago I was in a like vegetarian stage. And I made my dad some, I don't know what kind of sausage, but it wasn't meat. Anyway, you see him, he does not look like a vegetarian. So I was sitting there like, I wonder what he's gonna say. Then he ended up crying. Maybe it was the sausage that made him cry. I hadn't thought about that. I'm going to read you another piece. This is my daughter. She's 13. Yay. But not yay. Whereas my eyes land on the shoreline of, quote, I'm going to quote something from the National Apology, text from that apology. Whereas my eyes land on the shoreline of, quote, the arrival of Europeans in North America opened a new chapter in the history of Native peoples. End quote. Because in others, I hate the act of laughing when hurt, injured, or in cases of danger. That bitter hiding. My daughter picks up new habits from friends. She'd been running, tripped, slid on knees and palms onto asphalt. They carried her into the kitchen. She just fell. She's bleeding. Deep red streams down her arms and legs, trails on white tile. I looked at her face. A smile quivered her, a laugh, a nervous. Doing as her friends do, she braved new behavior, feigned a grin. I couldn't name it, but I could spot it. Stop, my girl. If you're hurting, cry. Like that, she let it out. A flood from living room to bathroom. Then a soft water pour. I washed carefully, light touch, clean cotton to bandage. I faced her. I reminded. In our home, in our family, we are ourselves. Real feelings. Be true. Yet I'm serious when I say I laugh, reading the phrase, quote, opened a new chapter. I can't help my body. I shake. The realization that it took this phrase to show my daughter's quiver isn't new, but a deep practice, very old. She's watching me. I love this from the installation. All kinds of young people and older people came to the exhibit. It was up for 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, the walls were packed. I watched 3 young girls, I want to say they were maybe like 15 or 16, all huddled in the corner with their yellow paint. They painted my favorite one of the whole exhibit. It said, "If you're so sorry, give us back the Black Hills." Oh, I love that. They're so smart, right? I'm going to read another piece from this series, this response, titled Resolution 2. I have structured the response I wrote into 3 sections. The first section is whereas statements. There's 20 of those. The second section is resolutions. There's 7 of those. And it closes with 2 disclaimers. So that mirrors the structure of that national apology. It's online if you want to look at it. But in the resolutions, I just used the actual language of the congressional resolutions and sort of reworked it into my own pieces. This is my grandma Sha. She came to the exhibit. She's actually gone now. So I felt very lucky that she could join us, or she came and had some coffee and hung out. I commend this land and this land. Honor this land. Native this land. Peoples this land. For
this land, this land. Thousands, this land. Of this land. Years, this land. That, this land. They, this land. Have this land. Stewarded this land and this land. Protected this land, 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 this. Yay! I don't know how we're doing on time, let me see.
Don't tell me I used all my time, did I? Almost. Well, oh, I'm okay. All right. Well, I won't, I was telling you earlier, I could just do this all night. We could just go on and on and on. But I will share a few pieces from some other work that I have done. I'm still always revising. So I'm picking away at these poems. But in my lecture today, if you were there, any of you were there, I did sort of briefly share something about this project called Midakuye Oyasin. I made some poems and some visual work in an exhibit 2 years ago with 2 other Lakota friends, Lakota artists, Mary Bordeaux and Clementine Bordeaux. So we were interested, Midakuye Oyasin roughly translates to something like we're all related, or all my relatives, something like that. It's a phrase that is very common, I think kind of common, you hear it often in Indian country, like if you go to certain events or whatever, you hear people use this in introductions, use it in closing remarks and so on, even if they're not Lakota. So we were interested in maybe exploring that a little bit deeper, this idea of being a relative, because we felt like, especially Mary and Clementine, they really felt like people often take that phrase, appropriate it, and use it to create a sense of familiarity. Quick familiarity, we're all related, doesn't that feel good? But they don't really understand the deeper meanings that go along with being a relative in Lakota culture. If you are a relative, that's something very serious. There are responsibilities and obligations that we have to one another. And we are relatives to more than just humans, right? We are related to everything around us. So we wanted to talk to different people. I don't want to turn this into a lecture. Oh my God, I could just keep going and going. Let me put things in a nutshell for you quickly. So Mary did sculptural work. Clementine is a documentary film person. And I made what's called star quilts. So if you're in the Northern Plains, have you guys, any of you seen star quilts? Okay, so those are very common in the Northern Plains. You'll see those a lot. We give them to each other for special occasions.
graduations, births, funerals. When people pass away, we give the family a star quilt, and so on. So one time, one of my cousins gave me a pattern. It looks something like this. She gave me a sewing pattern to make a star quilt, but I don't sew. So I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you, whatever. So I took that and I had it in my room, and it was like kind of sitting around my desk, and it was staring at me, just staring at me forever. And I really liked it. I liked that pattern, but I didn't know what to do with it because I don't sew, but I do make things. I like to make things a lot. I get an urge. So when this exhibit came up, I decided to make a star quilt, but out of paper and copper wire and industrial materials. So I ordered some heavy cotton paper from India, and I expanded each of those diamonds to 1 foot long each. And they were on a little piece of paper, and I expanded them, each little diamond that long, so that at the end of, when it was all constructed, it was 12 feet high by 12 feet wide. So it's really tall. So here's one of those sections on my table, kitchen table. I sat and sewed them together, watched Netflix and did all that. It's hard to tell, but that's about 6 feet long on my table. The little dots you see in between, in the black diamonds, is text. So I made poems and I laser cut text into each of those diamonds. So that's all of them sewn together. This project took a little over a year to do. I made 2 quilts. And I used those interviews that Clementine did. Clementine sent me all her audio clips. I sat and listened to them, and that's what I used to make these poems. So the way that we read them, this form came from the star quilt. I made the phrases so that you can connect them yourself as a viewer or as a reader. So you would start up towards the middle tip, the tip in the middle, and work your way down, and you can connect the phrases however you want to. That's what I'm going to share with you now. Oh, here's the other one. This is called Mosquitoes. And that wasn't sewn or laser cut. That was stencil work. Because mosquitoes are our relatives too, like it or not. And they're everywhere. There's mosquitoes in our families. You know who they are. There's some mosquitoes here in this room, I bet. But they don't have to ruin everything, right? They don't. You just swat them away. Okay, but they're there, and we are related, we are connected. You have to deal with this. It's part of life. All right, so I made a quilt honoring mosquitoes. Oh, look at, these are Mary's pieces. She made a skull. Buffalo, those are our relatives. She made a big rock, a stone, that gray thing. That's also stone in our culture. Rock is our relative, believe it or not. There's whole stories about that. And she made those so that you can, she put the interview clips, Clementine's interview, she put a little screen inside the rock, one inside the skull, and people can come in and put those on their head and watch the clips, the movie clips, and learn what it is to be a relative in Lakota culture, in our philosophy. So that was super fun. She made a porcupine too, and porcupine that's one of our relatives, and porcupine has a little speaker in there. You have to go very close. And porcupine will also tell you what it is to be related to the world around you. That's inside the stone. You can see she put braids of sweetgrass, and then a little TV screen. And that's one of our community members speaking on the screen there. That's Mary on the right, and then Clementine on the left. That was me in the middle. Whatever. Okay, here we go. I'll just read a few of these pieces and we'll end. Okay. As I hope to speak my heart, I remember to sing as a child, to understand these are stories. As I hope to change my tongue, I long to sing as a child, to understand these are stories. As I hope to change my eyes, I pause to sing as a mourner, to understand these are stories. As I cease to believe my eyes, I pause to sing as a mourner, to endure these are stories. As I cease to believe my intuition, I forget to sing as a soldier, to endure these are stories. This piece was inspired by someone talking about intuition, and one of the ladies was talking about, well, she was saying something I thought I had never heard someone phrase it in this way, word it in this way, but she said, as Lakota people, it is our responsibility to strengthen our intuition. It's a responsibility. It's not just something that we have or we use here and there or listen to. It's our responsibility to strengthen it, because this helps us be a good relative. So, in other words, when someone is suffering, someone is hurting, we know it, right? You can go, you can show up at their door, ask them how they are, help them, and so on. You can also guard and protect your family based on intuition and all of that. So I was really moved by that. That came from that. I'm going to read this one. I really found this one interesting. One of the people was talking about dictionaries. I mentioned this in the lecture earlier today. There's a lot of politics surrounding dictionaries made from native languages. We have often a lot of well-meaning academics who will come to our communities, collect our language, interview certain people of their choosing, and then they have copyrights over the dictionaries, over the language materials. And sometimes depending on who they interview, the region, the dialect, and so on, it may not be what your family speaks, but because it's written, it becomes the word. You understand? So there's all kinds of stuff, conversations going on about that. So I really appreciated what she had to say. This year, we held close our traditions to guard our family's future, an unwritten poem birthing us, the body. This year, we held close our new dictionary to determine our land's future, an unwritten poem birthing us, the body. This year, we strained against our new dictionary, to examine our community's future. Labor pains, birthing us, the body. This year, we strained against law and treaty to examine the Ocheti Shakoi future, labor pains trapping us, the body. This year, we strained against law and treaty to redress our country's future, a splitting tree trapping us, the body. You know, I'm going to leave it there. I have a whole series of poems based on Zint Kalasha. If you don't know who that is, I highly recommend looking her up, reading. She's an early Dakota writer. Part of what I would consider my literary lineage, someone I refer to a lot. But I'm actually going to just leave it there, because as I said, we could just go on all night, and I'll leave it there.